A belief is only a thought you continue to think. A belief is just a thought that you think, and then because you thought it, law of attraction brought more like it, and when law of attraction brought more like it, you thought it some more. When you come to realize that you have the ability to turn your attention to what you want and predominantly activate that vibration, then you begin to understand that beliefs are not what they are cracked up to be in your society of hypocritical truth-telling. We say hypocritical because almost every time somebody says to tell you the truth, they're not. But we don't want you to get hung up on that truth stuff anyway, because there are a whole lot of things that are true that you don't want to activate in your vibration. And there are a whole lot of things that are true that you do want to activate in your vibration, but if you let truth be the prerequisite, then you could give your attention to a whole lot of true things that you then give thought to, which then you develop beliefs around. And so, without meaning to, many of you develop beliefs that from our perspective are truly flawed premises as far as the laws of the universe go. The law of attraction says, you get what you think about whether you want it or not. And a flawed premise of humanity says it's important that we study and peruse our history, and that we make very big deals out of unwanted parts of history so that we never repeat them again. Law of attraction says that's a flawed premise. It's not possible to make a historical experience active in your vibration, and a lot of you do it, without it repeating itself. It's a flawed premise. Law of attraction says you get what you think about whether you want it or not. So the criteria that we would use if we were standing in your physical shoes would not be, is it true? Might be. The criteria that we would be looking for is, when I give my attention to this subject, how do I feel when I do it? Because that will tell you something really important. How you feel when you give something your attention is your indicator of how far or how near you are from the vantage point of your source. It works like this. You were non-physical energy. A part of you came forth into this physical body. You explored this time-space reality. You know what you do want. You know what you don't want. You mix it up really good. You give rockets of desires all day, every day, as a result of that exposure to that contrast, just like you knew you would. And then, as the rockets of desires are emanating from you all day, every day, the non-physical part of you, the total you, the source energy you, the eternal you, becomes the vibrational equivalent of these newly amended intentions and desires. In other words, every time you add something new, non-physical, who knows that you should know because after all you're out there on the leading edge, who knows that you should know because after all it's your life that you're expanding, when you ask for it, the larger part of you becomes it vibrationally. And when that happens, there is a vibrational beingness. We've been calling it your vibrational escrow or your vibrational beingness. We want to call it your vibrational reality. In other words, it is the becoming of you. Now, from our vantage point, it's not the becoming of you, it's the having become of you. In other words, once you ask, it is given, and as far as we are concerned, it is now present tense. So when you're sick and you ask for wellness, you can't help it, and the sicker you are, the more wellness you ask for, you have become it immediately. It's not future tense, and it's no longer past tense, it's present tense. You are weller immediately. Many of you say, well, then where's my stuff? Still feels like future tense to me. And we say, when you remember, and it is something you will remember because it is something that you know, everything that you see in physical formation, everything that you call manifestation, everything that is actualized, all this knock-on wood stuff that you can see and smell and hear and taste and touch, all this stuff was preceded by a vibrational reality. Everything, the earth spinning in its orbit, it was vibrational reality first. And because thinkers thought upon it longer, when enough thinkers thought upon it, it began to take form enough that other thinkers could then experience the participation of it in manifested form. Everything is that way. You are magnificent beings, and you are incredible in your earthly achievements. But we want you to know as bright and brilliant and willing and wanting as you are, you have not scraped enough dirt together and launched it into orbit. You are not launching planets into orbit. There's something bigger going on here than you can explain through the physical beingness and action of your time-space reality. So we want you to understand that when we talk about this vibrational reality, and we'll be talking about it all day long here today because it is a point of reference, it is one point of vibrational reality that the other part of you in your physical form is playing off of all day, every day. The reason you feel the emotions that you feel is because of the existence of this vibrational reality. And so we don't want you to blow it off, as Esther says. Don't blow this off as some sort of airy-fairy, non-physical mumbo-jumbo. Oh, my car is in my vibrational reality. Whoop-to-doo. We want you to understand it is in there along with your lover, along with your abundance, along with your magnificent feeling body. It's in there with your clarity. It's in there with all that life has caused you to become. Not just life since you got into this physical body, life that you were living before you came forth, life that you've been living and asking for and asking for. You have become something really worth knowing. And that's the point of the art of allowing. We want you to come to know your total beingness. We want you to remember who you are. We want you to tune yourself to that vibrational part of you. That is the criteria that we would use all day, every day, if we were wondering whether we should give our attention to this or this or this or this or this. How does it feel? How does it feel? And what that will tell you, if something doesn't feel good when you think about it, it means one really important thing. The source within you isn't thinking about it. Not like that. When you see something abhorrent in your environment and you hate it or loathe it or condemn it, that fear or anger or resentment or powerlessness that you feel is your indicator that you're way off frequency from who you really are. And some say, oh, in fact, Esther has said it. Abraham, please don't tell me Source loves that. We say, it isn't that Source loves that. It is that Source is not looking at that lackful thing that you are looking at. When you see someone sick and you empathize and feel fear for them or maybe for yourself, the reason you feel the fear is not because you're looking at a sick person. It's not sadness. The reason you feel those negative emotions is because you are looking at something in a way that the total whole you is not looking. And when you do that, you set up a vibrational frequency that, in essence, separates you, that's too strong of a word, but you get the point, from who you really are. You've introduced static into your vibration. And in doing so, you're using this maybe very valid thing as your excuse to not be who you really are. In other words, your guidance system has just shown you a false premise. You say, oh, but wait, everybody else at the funeral is crying. And we say, that's because they live under the false premise that there is loss here. Well, everybody else is feeling sad. That's because they live under the false premise that there is separation now that does not exist. Well, everybody else is sad. Well, that's because they're focused upon a feeling of not enoughness or lack or some injustice or something that shouldn't have happened. And the source within you will never look at this situation, at this magnificent life who has now reemerged into non-physical, as something bad. How can you, every single one of you knows that you came forth through that which you call birth and that you will reemerge into non-physical through that which you call death, and yet almost 100% of you are all uptight and worried about your death and others. Imagine, after all of this beingness, after all of this physical coming and going and coming and going and coming and going, it is still your number one hang-up. False premises, false premises, false premises. Death is a bad thing the day you're born, or nearly so. Watch out, that could kill you. Watch out, that could kill you. Gotta be careful, that could kill you, that could kill you. And we say, It's not about something killing you. It's about this natural process of coming and mixing it up and living out here on the leading edge and coming to new intentions and causing those intentions to precede you into the expanded beingness that you are. In other words, this is an eternal cycle of life, and death is not a part of it. But of course, there are chapters. You open doors and you close doors. There are all kinds of different perspectives that the eternal you will live. But you got to get over this death thing or you will never really live. False premise. Another thing that many of you have come to believe is that your beliefs are really worth writing down and holding to no matter what. My mother believed it, and her mother believed it. Why do you lay on a hot stove? Isn't it painful? Yes, it's incredibly painful. It's one of the worst things I've ever done to myself. Why do you do it? Everyone in my family does this. It's just what we do. Almost everyone I know does this. Well, doesn't it hurt? Yeah. It hurts really bad. Isn't it destroying your body? Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure this can't be good for me. Well, then why do you do it? It's bigger than me. It started, I suppose, before I even got here. It's a tradition of our culture and our society. And we say, at some point, you want to let go of that false premise. In other words, if it doesn't feel good to you, that should tell you something. Why do you second guess yourself that this is painful, but it's probably the right thing to do? Because another false premise, there's no gain without pain. Oh, I want gain. So, we think you now know everything that we know that is important. Now it's just a matter of thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling and little by little guiding your thoughts to better and better feeling thoughts. You know, your vortex is spinning over here and everything that you want is in it, and even the new things that you just thought about today are already amassed. They already are present tense in terms of this vibrational reality. And you are somewhere in relationship to it. If you're feeling love and joy mostly, you're in there a lot. If you're hopeful, you're on the verge of it and you're getting evidence that it exists, and so you're jumping in and out, jumping in and out, jumping in and out. Hopeful is really a lovely place to be. When you are in a vibration of hopefulness, you have access to a lot that's already in there. When you're believing, you're right in there. When you're knowing, you're right in there. When you know, you have instant manifestation. Do you know that? If you could train yourself into knowing that what you are wanting is already done, it would be done right now. When you want it and know it, it is. When you want it and believe it, it becomes right before your eyes. It is the most glorious state of being. When you want it and hope it, you're close enough to proximity that things are showing themselves to you often and you're living a very joyful life. When you want it and you doubt it, you're nowhere near the vortex. It's spinning, all kinds of things are amassed. You're missing all of them. You get ornerier and ornerier and ornerier. So the art of allowing is about you consciously tending to the gap between where you stand and this vortex. And everything that we offer you, every word we've ever offered, every book we've ever written, every process in every book, everything that we have ever spoken to you has been toward you finding a way of getting in that vortex, being who you really are. That's where life is. When you're in there, you are in love. When you're in there, you are love. When you're in there, you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. When you're in there, you feel passion and enthusiasm and interest for things. When you're in there, a feeling of satisfaction is yours. When you're in there, you are intoxicating to others. When you're in there, people who are around you are uplifted by your very presence. When you're in there, the best ideas occur to you. When you're in there, life is full and fast and fun. It's like being on the surfboard on that magnificent wave, and it's an eternal, never-ending run. You see, when you're in there, that's the way you intended to live life. And when you croak, that's where you'll be. Meantime, you can get in there if you want to be. And we hope that just by the feeling of what being in there is about, you can feel that not being in there is equally not pleasant. When you really know what you don't want, you ask proportionally for what you do want. In other words, your emotions are all about this mixture. Satisfying. What do you want to talk about? Did you come to talk about some things? Yes? Just a few. We're going to have a very good time. You will notice a perfect unfolding. You also have to know that this meeting already gathered and it's already in the vortex. In other words, it will be a very wonderful unfolding. Begin right here. Yes.